acknowledging that this afternoon we are meeting on the lands of my ancestors, the Wurundjeri people. So, Woman Jekyll, welcome. Enjoy the game. Thank you.
Short, sharp, no lecture. And it was the same at the races at Flemington where I was. They had a lovely service in the mounting yard, but the politics weren't there either. These events, though, they were not the official dawn service. As I said, the comments were short, they were respectful. As I said in my post, there might be a place for a welcome to country, but it's not every place and it is not everywhere. And just as I don't do an acknowledgement of country in any speech I ever give, I've had enough of the gratuitous welcomes to country as well. One flag for me, one country for all of us, and no dividing Australians by their race. It's not too hard, is it? And yet why don't our politicians listen? Because believe me, until they do, that reaction from crowds will only grow.
This is your home, this is your house, this is, and we're there to show the deepest respect to the host. And that's all we're saying, is that, you know, you're on our country, in our land, just acknowledge it and respect whose land you're on. It's not that difficult to understand for me.
Well, it is for me, I'm sorry, Ray, because your land is my land too. Your country is my country. After all, Credlins have been here for 172 years. We've worked to build and create this land. We've gone to war to defend it. So being Australian is all that I know. And that's how I suspect so many felt over the weekend. Commentators who accused the crowd of being disrespectful to individual Indigenous Australians, presumably, of course, paid thousands of dollars to do these welcomes, well, they missed the point. People were not booing these men. They were booing the officials that have forced these politically correct pantomimes on us. They were booing the politicians that are allowing Anzac Day to be denigrated and divided by race. And they were booing because they don't know how else now to get heard, given they've voted against things like The Voice and still governments push treaties and racial separatism on them anyway. The official edict that says we have to have welcomes and acknowledgements anyway. I'm not aware of any vote in the parliament that requires me, and yet other than at weddings or funerals, that'll come, I bet you, that'll come, these welcomes are everywhere at everything. And yet by forcing welcomes to country and acknowledgements of country on us, whatever goodwill there once was is evaporating fast. Where before an Aboriginal element was added to an event where it was relevant, like the AFL's upcoming Dreamtime Indigenous round, well, now you can hardly open an envelope without an elder giving us a lecture about stolen land. What was once a short, genuine welcome is now all too often a highly political rant. Here, and it was the sanctimony from the politicians that really got under my skin. So much so that I decided to post this message that so far in just 24 hours has been viewed some 170,000 times.
I'm just going through the papers, and I have to say, people booing on Anzac Day at services, I'm sorry, if you're a politician ripping into them today, you don't get a say. You don't get a say. People have had enough. You know, in Victoria, my state of Victoria, they voted against The Voice, and yet they're forced to have a treaty, they're forced to have all of this other stuff thrown at them. It's like their vote doesn't matter. So I can understand how cranky they are. Would I have done it? No, I wouldn't. But I don't do acknowledgements of country, and often I stand there for welcomes to country, and I boo on the inside. Like, we have had enough. There might be a place for a welcome to country, but it is not every place. It is not everywhere. Get the message, politicians. We have had enough.
The acknowledgement of country. That must be disappointing considering the part Indigenous Australians have played in the armed forces.
Well, one of the things that we in the Defence Force are defending, as I've said, is our democracy and freedom of expression. So whilst that might be disappointing, those are exactly the principles that the Australian Defence Force is designed to defend.
Quite meme was doing the rounds on social media today. The man they booed was one of us. He's a veteran. He comes from a family of service. On Anzac Day, he got shouted down. Well, I got to be honest, that is pretty disingenuous. People weren't booing Ray Minnicon. They were booing the highly political, racially divisive ceremony Ray Minnicon was performing. Meanwhile, in Melbourne...
I am Uncle Mark Brown, Elder and Senior Cultural Heritage Officer of the Bunurong people. And today, I'm here to welcome everybody to my father's country. Beautiful Bunurong country. But before we do that, as always, we take a moment, we pay our acknowledgements, and we pay our respects. We pay our respects to all of my ancestors. We pay our respects to all of my elders. And we pay our respects to all of my community members, past, present, and emerging.
That was Uncle Mark Brown, who runs an organisation called Dreaming Spirit. Now, I'm not sure what he charges to put on an Anzac Day Welcome to Country, but if you go onto his website, you can book one of your own for about $770. That's for a 15-minute performance. He says the purpose of a Welcome to Country is to, and I quote, give permission to visitors to enter and conduct activities on the land. So we send Australians overseas to fight for this country and then we welcome them back as visitors. Does anyone see the problem here? Not Victorian Premier Jacinta Allen. Faster than you can say treaty, she put out a statement condemning those who objected to being ceremonially reclassified. The disruption of this morning's dawn service was not only disgraceful, it's a betrayal of everything Anzac Day stands for, she wrote. She continued, a moment meant for silence and reflection was deliberately broken. Well, that would be compelling if it were true. But people didn't boo or disrupt during the moment of silence. They booed during the part where they were being called visitors in their own country. So why would the Victorian Labor Premier say people booed during the moment's silence? She's trying to stoke even more division while claiming to be upset about division. Honestly, she's shameless. Jacinta Allen's statement continued like this. Anzac Day is not a stage for division. Now, I have to say, on that point, I agree with her. But Jacinta Allen is scolding the wrong people because the boos weren't the sound of divisiveness. In my opinion, all the division was coming from the microphone.
And we acknowledge the continuous and unbroken connection to country for the Bunurong people. We also pay acknowledgements and respects to all traditional custodians of Australia, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander. And we pay acknowledgements and respects to all of my Indigenous brothers and sisters from around the world.
We're using Anzac Day to acknowledge Indigenous people around the world? I should note, this was Mark Brown's second effort at an Anzac Day Welcome to Country. He was booed last year as well. Oh, and he didn't bother to remove his baseball cap for last year's solemn Anzac Day ceremony either. Maybe he'll do that next year. Here's how Mark Brown finished his Welcome to Country.
This welcome is an opportunity. It's an opportunity for us to honour and respect the deep cultural heritage of the Bunurong people of the Kulin Nations, whose elders and community members have generously looked after these lands for countless generations.
My people have generously looked after these lands for countless generations. Now, what I hear there, when I hear countless generations, is before any of you arrived. That's not what he said, but how else would you interpret it? In my opinion, there's nothing generous or gracious about that speech, and there's nothing generous about treating returned servicemen as visitors in their own land, and there's nothing noble about reframing a day of shared sacrifice into a lecture on historical hierarchy. Mark Brown put out a statement on LinkedIn yesterday. It's 3 pages long. I'll give you some of the highlights. Today at Anzac Day, there was noise again, booing, heckling, more than last year. but all it did was fuel my fire. Because this isn't about them. I carry my ancestors with me. I carry thousands of generations. I speak for country. And to the ones carrying hate, trying to disrupt something bigger than themselves, I live rent-free in your heads. And he signed it off, love Uncle Mark Brown, traditional custodian of this country. What's striking is what's missing. Mark Brown's statement contained not a single word about our soldiers, you know, those who fought and died for Australia, the people Anzac Day exists for. It was almost as if Anzac Day existed for Mark Brown and his ancestors. Anyway, no one wants to see division and no one wants to see Anzac Day memorials marked by booing and heckling. I promised you a solution, and so here it is. Scrap Welcome to Country ceremonies on Anzac Day. Anzac Day survived 108 years without Welcome to Country. I'm pretty sure it's going to be okay. Seriously, we have something like 60 days a year to celebrate LGBTQ issues, around 20 days a year to focus on Indigenous issues. Is it too much to ask that for one day each year, April 25, we focus on our veterans and what they did for all Australians? Our parents and our grandparents didn't fight and die united so Australians today could live divided by race. It's pretty simple. Scrap the divisive Welcome to Country on Anzac Day and the division, it'll go away. Now, if politicians continue with Welcome to Country on Anzac Day, knowing full well it gets a bigger and bigger reaction every year, then you know who wants division, no matter how much they tut-tut the booers and hecklers. Just on that, I've got one more suggestion. If our politicians insist on using our money to pay Indigenous elders to tell us we're visitors in our own country at next year's Anzac Day service, well, rather than booing, why not drown out the divisive Welcome to Country by singing the national anthem in full voice? A better answer to Welcome to Country than a boo is a full-throated, Australians all let us rejoice, for we are one and we are free.